Hey everyone, Shaun Stevenson here, author of the Throne series, helping you find your next retro read. And it is a Goosebumps day because I just finished reading Haunted Mask 2. And we need to talk about this book because I got thoughts, so let's talk about it. The Haunted Mask 2 is book number 36 in the Goosebumps series, and it's one of the few sequels that comes in the Goosebumps series where we have the same characters come back again for another adventure that is set in that same kind of area of wherever Goosebumps takes place, the Goosebumps universe. And so the same characters come back. So obviously, The Haunted Mask 2 is a follow-up to what I do consider to be one of the greatest written Goosebumps books of all time. It's not necessarily my favorite, but I do think it's the best written one that I have read out of all of them, and that is The Haunted Mask. And so obviously, expectations are going to be high for this one because this is The Haunted Mask 2. Coming out exactly, a few books later from The Haunted Mask, so it has a lot to live up to. Of course, also, The Haunted Mask is one of the most iconic Goosebumps television episodes that there is, so there's definitely a high bar that has been set for this particular sequel. And spoiler alert, I don't think it, well, not real spoilers. Not real spoilers. If it was real spoilers, I would tell you, but spoiler alert for this video, I don't think this book lives up to book number 1. Now, it's interesting. After I finished this book, I actually went and looked at a bunch of people's reviews because I wanted to know, what did people think of this particular entry in the Goosebumps series? Did people like it? Did people not like it? Do they feel kind of maybe how I feel, where it doesn't quite live up to the first book? And I saw a wide range of thoughts about this book. Some people don't like this one. I don't think I saw anyone who hated this one, but there's people who don't like it. There are people who thought that it's better than the first one, which surprised me quite a bit. And then there are people kind of like me who thought it's not bad, but it's not the best. So it's kind of somewhere in between. And that's kind of how I feel about it. In this book, it's the next Halloween after the Halloween that took place in the first book, The Haunted Mask. And this time, you have Steve and Chuck were kind of those two other boys who were kind of like making fun of Carly Beth and were having, just a time of their lives on Halloween, but then got scared when Carly Beth was wearing the mask. And so they decide that this year at Halloween, Steve wants to have a mask just like the one Carly Beth had, because Steve has been given some detention where it's kind of interesting detention. He has to coach the first grade soccer team, and it's like the worst kids of all time in this first grade soccer team. It actually reminded me of the kindergartners from the show Recess. If you've ever seen Recess, in that show, the kindergartners are portrayed as like wild animals that are like running around loose on the playground. And like all the older kids don't go near the kindergartners because it's too scary to go near them. And so those first graders were kind of like that in this book, where they are just terrorizing Steve. And I kind of was like, Steve's only in 6th grade. Why is he the one coaching this soccer team? There should be an adult there, in my personal opinion, but I don't know, whatever, it's the book. So Steve wants to get revenge on all these first grade kids by taking a mask from the same haunted mask shop that Carly Beth got her mask from, so he can scare all those first graders on Halloween and they will never terrorize him again. Well, he ends up getting a mask, and it is obviously, as we know from the first book, and here we go, a little hint into what I'm thinking here, some of the same things start to happen to Steve that happened to Carly Beth. The mask won't come off. So now what does he have to do in order to get this mask off? And that is the question. Or does he actually want to take the mask off? That's also the question. So this one, I will just say this. I feel like The Haunted Mask 2, unfortunately, retreads a ton of the same ground that The Haunted Mask did. I kept thinking the whole time, I was like, this just feels like we're doing the exact same thing again. And because I know the plot of The Haunted Mask, I was sitting there kind of waiting for it to happen here, because obviously Steve, and I'm going to try and say this without spoilers for book number 1, in case you have not read The Haunted Mask. In this book, Steve doesn't know the ending of what happened to Carly Beth at the end of The Haunted Mask. He doesn't know what happened to her. So he obviously is a little bit in the dark when it comes to wondering, how am I going to get this mask off when he has it on? And he does not know any of the things that Carly Beth knows about the shop, about the mask, all of those things. And so we're kind of, as the reader, if you've read the first Haunted Mask, you're just kind of waiting for the same plot points to show up as they did in the first book. And that's kind of exactly what happens. The same plot points show up. It's almost beat for beat how it goes, except for one interesting twist. In the first book, Carly Beth's mask really makes her like evil, and it's an exploration between like what is evil, what does it mean to be loving, all those sorts of things. And in this one, the mask does something different to Steve, and I'm not going to say what it is because I think that would be a spoiler for this book. But I felt like it just was not as compelling as what was happening to Carly Beth in the first book. Because I feel like for Carly Beth, it really was much more of a dilemma of how are we going to get this mask off, but also, do we want to take this mask off? And I feel like what's happening to Steve is just so different, where Steve is kind of in this place of, yes, I do want to take this mask off, even though there's this tiny like piece of him that wants revenge. So I just was kind of like, oh man, I don't know what to think about this book. I think character-wise, you've got some great characters. Steve is very interesting. I feel like this book does flesh him out as a character much more. Carly Beth is really on the sidelines, and if you're going into this book for more Carly Beth, I would not come into this book for that, because she's really on the sidelines and comes in here and there, but she is not the focus of this story. It is definitely all about Steve. I think too, this one, it was interesting because Steve doesn't have an annoying sibling, but he does have a very interesting mom. And I didn't really love what R.L. Stine did with the mom in this book. A lot of times, R.L. Stine is interesting with his adult characters because other middle grade books often make adults kind of like buffoons, or if they know they're going to stop everything that's happening and stop the adventure, or they could easily step in and kind of save the day because they could make a phone call to the police, etc. So there's some interesting pieces here where the parents are portrayed as, the dad is kind of like dumb and aloof, and the mom is portrayed as really naggy, like just kind of nagging constantly on Steve. And I really didn't like that. I felt like R.L. Stine kind of transferred some of his like the ways he uses siblings and put it onto the mom in this book. And I feel like it just came across really annoying. And I just didn't, I recognize that there are parents that could be like that in real life, but I felt like it just was, to read it, it was very annoying. And I just kept thinking, I don't love this. Like, I just don't love reading this. It's just kind of annoying to read. So I didn't really love that characterization. So when it comes to the twist in this book, it's very interesting because it sort of comes out of nowhere. It makes sense. Like, I felt like, okay, that's really plausible that that could be the twist in this book. But then I felt as though it just wasn't like leaving you with a sense of, oh no, now what? It just was. Because everything that's happened in this book, we're kind of like, okay, so we already know what to do about this situation, so it's not a bad situation. And I just kept thinking, that is just not really that compelling of a twist ending. It just kind of is. I am curious because I know there's another Haunted Mask entry in another series that comes up much later, and I'm very curious about that book. I'm curious if it deepens the lore at all, because I feel like this one didn't deepen the lore at all. It just is kind of the same lore from the Haunted Mask. It's not much different. There's not really anything else that I felt was really compelling about the lore piece of it. And so that was kind of a little bit of a letdown to me. I wish we could have gotten a little more about what's going on and with these masks, all these sorts of things. We just don't find out really much at all. And it just is more of the same. And maybe this falls into the same trap that the Return of the Mummy did, where Return of the Mummy, I liked it, but it was the same thing as The Curse of the Mummy. It just was the same beats, the same tropes, the same exact thing all over again. And I feel like that's what this is. The same exact thing all over again. Again, it's not a bad one. Like, I would definitely put this way above like Go Eat Worms or another terrible Goosebumps book in my personal opinion. Some of them I do not like, as you know if you've heard some of my other reviews on this channel. But this one to me is just like a mid-tier. It's not special. It's not that interesting. It just kind of is. It's more of the Haunted Mask. So I guess if you want more of the Haunted Mask, read the Haunted Mask 2. If you're fine with the Haunted Mask as it was and you don't want it ruined, don't read this one. Unless, of course, you're a Goosebumps completionist, then you're going to want to read it all. So at the end of the day, I would definitely give the Haunted Mask 2 a solid 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It just was. It was just another entry in the Goosebumps series that was not my personal favorite. So, I mean, take it or leave it. You might like this one. If you do like this one, I would love to know why. What was it about this entry in Goosebumps that you really found compelling? Because I would be super curious to know that because of how I felt about this book. Like, it was just felt to me like a retread of the same thing again. So definitely let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, everybody, keep reading. Bye.